Dr. Intan Azura Mokhtar.
It has been reported that while unemployment levels remain low, there are substantial numbers of job seekers who have been out of work for at least 6 months and who have found it difficult to get new employment offers. In other words, they are considered to be facing long-term unemployment. While the number of long-term unemployed have risen only 0.2% from the period 2015 to 2017, what is worrying is the re-entry rate of older workers aged 50 years old and above. It was found that less than 56% of resident workers aged 50 years old or older were able to re-enter the job market, compared to more than 66% for the national average. How effective have the Professional Conversion Program, Career Support Program, or Adapt and Growth Scheme been in helping older workers aged 50 years old and above re-enter the job market? How many of our older workers have managed to draw a salary equivalent to their last drawn salary after undergoing the PCP, CSP, or ANG as they re-enter the job market? How many have managed to see an increase in their monthly salaries after having gone through the PCP, CSP, or ANG? I would also like to urge the Ministry to consider reviewing the CPF contribution rates for older workers aged above 55 years old. At the moment, once employees are more than 55 years old, their employee CPF contribution is reduced by 7%, while the employer CPF contribution is reduced by 4%. This results in an overall reduction of 11% for their combined CPF contribution each month. This is not a small amount. As we encourage Singaporeans to continue to stay active, be gainfully employed, be financially independent and make their golden years count, the government also needs to help them do so. At the age of 55 or 56 years old, many Singaporeans are still supporting school-going children, as well as elderly parents, and are still paying for their housing loans. Drastically reducing their monthly CPF contributions by 11% when they reach 56 years old would mean they would need to pay more of their housing loan in cash, or that they would need to pay part of their children's post-secondary tuition fees in cash. Bearing in mind that as more Singaporeans are marrying later and having children later, this situation will be experienced by more Singaporeans as we live through this decade and the next couple of decades. I would like to propose to the Ministry to not cut the CPF contribution rates for Singaporeans aged 56 to 60 years old. Let it remain at 17% for employee CPF contribution and 20% for employee CPF contribution. Many Singaporeans still want to work and be gainfully employed between the ages 56 and 60 years old, as they still have financial commitments to fulfill. Between the ages of 56 and 60 years old, many Singaporeans are still healthy and active, both physically and mentally, and are still able to actively and productively contribute to their work and fulfill their job responsibilities. If retaining the CPF contribution rates for this group of Singaporeans would render them less attractive to be employed, there are two suggestions. One, the CPF contribution rates can be staggered downwards progressively rather than a drastic cut once they cross the threshold of 55 to 56 years old. For instance, upon reaching 56 years old, the employer CPF contribution can be 16% and the employee CPF contribution can be 19%. Upon reaching 57 years old, the employer CPF contribution can be 15% and the employee CPF contribution can be 18%. The reduction goes on progressively 1 to 2% a year until they reach 60 years old. Two, the government can come in to provide the buffer for CPF reduction in a bid to encourage older Singaporeans to continue to work, be financially independent and stay active. Where employers are reluctant to continue to pay the more than 13% CPF contribution, the government can step in and plug the gap. For instance, upon reaching 56 years old, the employer contributes CPF at a rate of 13%, while the government contributes 3%. I would like to urge employers to recognize the contribution of older Singaporean workers. They have a wealth of historical and institutional knowledge as well as work-related experience that can be tapped on. Employers should find ways in which older workers, if they are less physically able to continue to perform the work that they have been doing, they can undergo job redesign to become trainers or mentors to younger workers. It is a waste of talent and experience to let older Singaporean workers retire or even end up doing menial work.